Okay, so I don't know if this will be touchy for some people or not, because if you're clicking on this video, you probably know exactly what kind of fans these Helluva Boss, Hasbin Hotel, Vivzy Pop fans are, and if not, I can tell you in one sentence, they're on that demon time. Lately, I and several other Helluva Boss fans have begun finding a glaringly huge problem with one character in particular, our beloved feisty imp, Millie. Now, some of you who probably aren't in the loop are likely wondering what the problem could possibly be, because it's Millie, like one of the best girls out of the Helluva Boss lineup. And as far as many of us are concerned, this Southern Belle baddie from the Ring of Wrath. Bro, one of the best fighters on the M squad. Meanwhile, acknowledging that everyone is generally a good fighter, so technically she's considerably special only because she's better at fighting than the others. But anyway, she's the one who serves as the loving, doting wife of Moxie, and I mean, that's basically it, isn't it? I mean, that's kind of the bulk of her character, isn't it? Violent and violence prone, and the loving, doting wife of Moxie. I mean, I don't know. I don't plan on dwelling on it too long. I don't plan on dwelling too long on this topic because of a few things. First of all, Viv actually responded to this current controversy, if you will, by making a whole Twitter thread about it. She says that there will be future episodes expanding on Millie in the current season, which is season 2 right now. And so I'll just safely assume that this is actually true, and that this stuff will be addressed canonically when the time comes. Also, I don't want to dwell on it too long, mainly because I just don't want to have another super long video to edit. I know I'm lazy. That being said, let's get into this. Millie was introduced from day 1 of this web series being uploaded to YouTube, starting with the pilot episode. Now, given that it's a pilot, I mean, I think it's safe to say that absolutely no one expected the pilot to be especially involved with characterization or character development. After all, it's a pilot. The goal is to basically tell us, the audience, what we're potentially getting ourselves into as far as the point of your show is, so to speak. Therefore, all that really had to be established at the time was what kind of characters the main leads were most likely going to be, and then what kind of relationship they all have with each other, among other things. It's basically like taking your 1 or 2 sentence synopsis and turning it into a short conceptual quote-unquote episode, which is what was done. In the case of Millie and Moxie, they're married, and it isn't until the series actually begins that we later learn that they're newlyweds, to be exact. I mean, I suppose the idea of these two together and their dynamic is that they're in the honeymoon phase or the cupcake phase, however you know it. I don't know how long this web series intends to run, so for all we know, Viv and her team might try to wrap up the overarching story, if there actually is one to be so real, after 4 seasons or so, and we've already begun season 2. And frankly, their dynamic is still like that, and I don't have a problem with that. I don't think many people do. It's just that Millie's character outside of her relationship with Moxie is so underdeveloped. Now, I'm not gonna lie, when I first caught wind of people saying this about Millie, I remember feeling pretty defensive about it too, because I was just bro, that's my girl, first of all. Bro, put some respect in her name. Her relationship with Moxie is so sweet. So, literally, what is the problem? What's wrong with how she is now? And I was pretty defensive about it too, but as I began to further analyze her character myself, it was then that I started to see what people meant. I'm not even gonna lie to you. In episode 5 of season 1, the Harvest Moon Festival, the Imp Gang goes to visit Millie's family. Given that this episode is about Millie's family, you'd think it'd be about her, right? Because this would be the perfect instance to teach us what kind of character she is. outside of being Moxie's wife? Is she family oriented? Is she a mama's girl or a daddy's girl? What kind of relationship does she really have with her sister? Like, does she like her sister? Does she potentially not like her sister? Like, what kind of relationship does she have with her sister? Is she even close to her? How does Millie feel about her hometown? Like, does she miss it? Would she want to go back and live there once again? Etc., etc., etc. Plus, the fun thing about stereotypical episodes like this, where we get to see a character's childhood home, is that usually we get to look like directly into their childhood. So what does her childhood bedroom look like, for example? Are there any photos of her when she was young, like hanging on the walls and shit like that? And if so, what kind of moments did her family decide to photograph? Like, what were the most memorable, I guess I'll say, events that occurred in this household involving Millie, you know? And like, is her room, like, is it stereotypically girly or feminine? Is it super boyish, or is it like covered in weaponry and like weapon craft and stuff? Or is it full of arts and crafts? Is it weirdly modern or very typical of what one would expect from a simple rural country home? Like, kind of, maybe, I don't know, what is her room kind of barren? Is it cluttered? Like, just the list of possibilities goes on, and anything similar to that could actually tell us a lot about what kind of person she is herself, like individually. Like, we could have potentially learned so much about her literally just through things like seeing what sort of things Millie likes to own, what sort of things she felt was important enough to keep from childhood. You know, what aspects of her room reflect who she was and how it compares to how she seems to be now. You know, there were so many possibilities, and yet I don't believe any of these things were really explored in this episode or any other episode, honestly, like, at all. This episode could have been used to explain why Millie left her rural hometown for the city, aside from finding work, I guess, or freelance work, whatever. But like, it could have further explained why she left her hometown anyway. You know, it could have explained why she became so skilled at fighting, or further explored why so many imps from her hometown seem to value brawling over other forms of recreation to begin with. Like, what does it matter to be an exceptionally great fighter here? What, to just avoid being the smaller fish? Is it nothing more than for sport or for fun? And if so, like, why y'all have fun beating each other's ass black and blue like every other Sunday, like every other Saturday, every other Sunday? Like, why did y'all make it a sport to knock each other's heads in every other weekend, bro, before you got up to go to work on Monday morning? Like, what? Why was that fun? Why is that a tradition for you guys? I don't understand. Is it a cultural thing? Is that just what people do when they're from the Ring of Wrath? Like, y'all just knock each other's heads in because you can? And why does Millie want to participate in fighting like this, or fighting competitions in her hometown, when, from what I can tell, I mean, there isn't that much of a payoff? I mean, I mean, I guess you win. I mean, is that it? What does it mean for Millie? Like, what does it mean for her to win these competitions? What does she really personally get out of it, aside from maybe a title and, I guess, respect? Is that it? Quote unquote respect from a town that you don't even live in? Let me stop. The great thing about web series or shows in general is that you're working with multiple episodes, which means you have many chances to address aspects of your character without shoving it all into one episode. But ideally, you will be actively working towards giving recurring characters development piece by piece and sticking by it. Please, 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 please don't develop the character in one way or direction and then change it later, or develop them for an episode and then go right back to however they were before in the same instance. Let your characters grow, please. Please let them grow, and let them keep growing until they reach a satisfactory conclusion. That being said, I'm not too sure how I feel about the way Viv responded to it. I don't know. It's like, I mean, nothing personal. It's like the fact that you felt the need to go to Twitter and basically explain away Millie's lack of development just kind of got me like, I don't know. Just kind of got me like, bro. I guess I just kind of feel like it makes you look a little, I dare say, like almost like bad as a writer. I don't know how to say that nicer. I'm so sorry. But like, it's instead of taking any accountability for like the valid criticisms that people are giving, like it's not like people are just shitting all over this Millie as a character or Viv's writing or nothing. It's not like people are just shitting all over it. People are just genuinely pointing out, like, you know, most of these other main characters are pretty developed except for the girls, and especially Millie. It's a really valid criticism. It's pretty noticeable. Like, a lot of people notice it. Actually, it's pretty noticeable. So I do just kind of feel like, you know, you could have took accountability. I don't know. I didn't really like it. Like, instead of taking accountability towards the fact that Millie did not receive any real development outside of her relationship with Moxie, as compared to Moxie himself, instead of doing that, like acknowledging that and taking accountability for it, Viz's response is to basically explain away, or I guess in other words, make an excuse for why she doesn't have development. Oh, well, it's because it's coming. Look, I get that the season just started, but bro, come on now. Look, we got 2-3 episodes of season 2 plus 8-10 episodes of season 1. I mean, I get that season 1 didn't focus too much on Millie or Moxie or whatever, but that doesn't mean that you can't give them development. You definitely still could have wormed some development in there and came back full circle, you know, here in season 2. But I mean, I'm not gonna press too hard because, you know, again, this is hoping that Viv will actually do what she said she would, and we will see development in this season or just sometime soon. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, like I'm far from the only person who has noticed this though. So many of the fans and or critics of the show alike have pointed out that, you know, as I sort of mentioned before, other female characters tend to take a backseat to the male characters in regard to character development. I mean, like, how much do we know about Luna, for example? Like, how much do we really know about Luna outside of Blitz? And then compare that to how much we know about Blitz compared to Luna. How much do we know about Stolas' daughter? I'm so sorry, y'all. I forgot her name. Outside of both him, Stolas, and her mother, Stella. Like, how much do we really know about this girl outside of the both of those people? I mean, fuck. What exactly do we even know about Stella outside of her just so happening to choose to be a total bitch to Stolas, apparently, just for the hell of it? And, oh my gosh. Speaking of hell... I'm starting to see certain fans start to use that same tired ass, broke ass excuse that they love to use whenever anyone criticizes Helluva Boss or Husband Hotel. Once again, they're using the, but it's hell, Latrina. Latrina, come on. It's hell. People are supposed to be bad and uninteresting and underdeveloped as characters. Bullshit, bro. Please stop. Please. I don't want to hear that bullshit, bro. You're using that it's hell bullshit in order to brush away any valid criticisms of the show. And I hate that. Look, I will break it down like this. The story might take place in hell, Jimbo, Venus, and yes, that is true. But that doesn't mean that the writers shouldn't take into account proper storytelling. The goal is not to be perfect, The goal is to get the job done and get the job done in a decent enough manner in order to be entertaining, but also correctly tell a story and correctly tell a character's story, which includes their development. The setting being in hell does not mean that character shouldn't or can't or quote unquote doesn't need to receive character development. That's just stupid. People pointed out that thoughtful writing hardly seems to be given to the girls of this show as generously as it's given to the boys is not an attack on the show. I'm so sorry, but you're childish as hell if you think that anyone criticizing any aspect of this show in any way, shape, or form that you don't like is a problem. Like, be so fucking for real right now. Be so for real. Regardless, I just feel like, or rather, I just felt like making a Twitter thread to sort of justify it and then engage in, I guess, damage control regarding the stagnation of Millie's character is kind of like in poor taste, I feel like. From now on, let's just agree that Millie should get as much development as Blitz, Moxie, and Starless has gotten to have. Period. Most importantly, I am going to ask my ancestors to please send bouts of creativity and innovation over to Viv and her team, because heaven knows the last thing we need is another severely traumatized character. And please, I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart. I sincerely hope the development that Viv has foreshadowed in her thread regarding Millie isn't alluding to anything having to do with abuse in any nature or daddy or mommy issues or even sibling issues. Please. Please. It's like, look, in the kindest way possible. It's like this lady doesn't know how to further develop a character or make them interesting without having to give them some sort of crazy ass childhood trauma. It might be challenging for the Helluva Boss writers, but honestly, I'm hoping that they will for once develop a character without relying on shit like abuse and or other emotional, psychological issues in order to make said character interesting. I assure you, Millie can be interesting without having to utilize abuse or mental disorders to make her quote unquote relatable. Please, Helluva Boss writers, please. And that goes for any of you writers and readers, to be fair. Please understand this. Trauma doesn't automatically make your character or characters interesting.
And also, and I'm going to touch your hand when I say this. When I said that you're not special, I meant that.
I'm going to repeat that for you. Trauma doesn't automatically make your character or characters interesting. It won't do any of the actual character development for you. It will not. It's not going to develop your character for you. In fact, relying on things like trauma in order to make an excessive trauma, especially in order to make a character seem interesting, is nothing more than lazy writing. I'm so sorry. It's lazy as hell. It takes more effort to make a relatively well-adjusted person interesting for some writers. So as a result, I guess you will rely on shit like wild ass shit like trauma, right? And crazy ass trauma at that to make up for your writing skills or lack thereof. But it just won't work that way. I suggest looking into some writing workshops online or using those character development sheets on Pinterest and stuff to practice writing character growth. Except with a condition: you cannot rely on trauma. I challenge you to that. Write me an interesting character and do not rely on trauma. Period. That being said, I think it's about time I bring this video to a close. I was really trying to make this video short, and it's still damn near like 20 minutes and then some. Look, write down in the comments what kinds of things you'd probably want to know about Millie, and it can be anything. Doesn't matter how common or obscure your question might happen to be. Whatever it is, write it in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for listening and or watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and all of you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful night.